The lawyer is still reading my grandfather's will when my Uncle Gordon stands up and puts one page on the table, and that page says, I signed away everything 6 years ago for nothing. Adrian Vance, I am 25 years old, and I am watching my family pass a forgery around a hotel table like a dish of mince. Nobody looks at me. The chandelier hums. My collar is suddenly too tight. Let me back up 90 seconds, because 90 seconds ago, I was rich. We are in the cedar room of the Halcyon Hotel, 11 of us around a long table, 9 days after we buried my grandfather, Elias Vance. The lawyer reads the paper in a flat voice. To my grandson Adrian, my founding stake in the Vance Group, 31% of the company, the votes that go with it, and the seat at the head of the table. My Aunt Celeste drops her spoon. My stepmother Diane goes very still, the way a cat goes still. My half-brother Marcus laughs once, quietly, like a man reading a menu with a typo in it. 31%, the founding stake. Grandfather held it for 50 years, and every year my father tried to talk it out of him, and the old man gave it to the son of the second wife, to me. For one whole breath, I believe my life has changed. Then Gordon stands, smooths his tie, and says, before we all embarrass ourselves, there is a document the family should see. He lays it down. A deed of renunciation, dated 6 years back, my signature at the bottom, witnessed and stamped by a notary. In it, I give up all present and future claims on Vance Group holdings, all of them, freely and forever. Know that signature. It is mine. When I was 19, my uncle brought me insurance papers to sign after my mother's old cottage flooded, a stack of pages with little yellow flags where my name went. I signed 11 flags in his kitchen while he made coffee. I say that out loud. I say, you brought me flags, Gordon. You stood there and counted them with me. My voice sounds smaller in this room than it sounded in my head. Gordon smiles at the table, at nobody. He says, the boy is upset, which is understandable, but the stamp is real and the notary is licensed. And the family should not be dragged through a scene. The lawyer looks at the deed for a long time. He is 60, he has read 10,000 deeds, and something in his mouth twitches like he smells old fish. He says, this appears to be in order. Appears. I will spend 3 years learning how much work that one word was doing. Right now, I am too busy drowning to hear it. My father speaks for the first time. Victor Vance, chairman now. 29% of everything. My father, who watched me learn to swim by throwing me off the dock at the lake house, he does not look at me either. He says, Adrian, if you needed money, you could have come to me like a son, instead of trying to claw at your grandfather's coffin in front of the whole family. The sentence lands upside down. I came here with nothing in my hands. Gordon brought the paper. Somehow, in 10 seconds, the story in the room is that I tried to steal my own inheritance and got caught. Marcus picks it up like a rehearsed line. He says, we all saw him at the funeral, whispering at grandfather's lawyer, working the old man's grief circle like a salesman. Marcus runs the family fund. He has a voice made for radio and he uses all of it. Diane finishes me with 4 sentences. She says, his mother came into this family through a side door. God rest her, and the boy learned the same walk. Blood tells. It always has. Victor, get it over with. I look at Lily. She is 17, my half-sister, the only person at this table who ate cereal with me at 6 in the morning for 10 straight years. Her knuckles are white around her phone, and there are tears sitting on her lower lashes, and she does not say anything. Nobody says anything except the ceiling fan and my own pulse. Then my father makes a small motion with 2 fingers, the one he uses for waiters, and the 2 men from hotel security peel off the wall. The lawyer clears his throat. He says, there is a codicil. Regardless of any other instrument, my watch goes to Adrian. In any case. In all cases. Those are the words as written. In any case. In all cases. Gordon snorts. He says, let him have the watch. It loses 4 minutes a day. Steel on a leather strap, 40 years old. The glass scratched into fog. Grandfather wore it through 2 bankruptcies and 1 heart attack. I take it off the felt tray and I put it on my wrist. Trent, my cousin, Gordon's boy, leans back so far his chair creaks. He flips a coin at me. It hits my chest and lands on the carpet, and he says, buy yourself a bus ticket, cousin. That coin is the first money of my new life. A quarter. They walk me out through the service corridor so the lobby does not see. Past the laundry carts, past the kitchen steam, the same corridor the staff use. Celeste says from behind, the service entrance suits him, and laughs, and Diane laughs with her. 2 glasses touching. George the doorman is holding my duffel bag. Everything I am allowed to take fits in it. He is 60 years old, and he looks at me the way men look at car accidents involving other men's sons. He says quietly, "The awning stays dry in the rain, son, if you ever need 10 minutes. I am on the sidewalk with a quarter and a duffel bag when Lily comes through the side door running. She pushes an envelope into my chest with both hands. Inside is her birthday money, $340, saved across 3 birthdays in a sock with a strawberry on it. She says, "I do not believe them. I will never believe them." Someone calls her name from the door, sharp, twice. She squeezes my wrist over the watch and she is gone, and the glass door closes on the warm light. And that is the last kind thing that happens to me for 3 years. Here is what the first life does with me after that, and I will tell it fast, because I lived it slow and once was enough. I sleep on the bench at the Corridon Street bus station. I learn which bench has the working heat vent under it, the third one, and that you defend it after midnight or you lose it. I gut fish at the Marrow docks for $9 an hour. Cash, no name. My hands crack. The foreman calls everybody Tuesday because he cannot be bothered, so for a year, my name is Tuesday. Month 2, I pawn the watch. The shop on 9th is run by a woman named June Park, who reads the case back twice, looks at me longer than the watch, and gives me $260 when the fair number is $180. She also puts a bowl of soup on the counter and says, "Sit, you are making my shop look haunted. I mean to buy the watch back in 30 days. It takes me 14 months. She keeps it anyway, off the shelf, in the drawer under the register, long past the legal date. When I finally slide the bills across, she says, "I do not sell other people's grandfathers." That sentence keeps me warm for a winter. Month 7. Every paper in the city says the same thing. Vance Group signs the Meridian expansion, $400 million in new debt, financed by Cross Capital. There is a photo of my father shaking hands with Simon Cross, and Cross is smiling like a man being handed a menu. I stand at a newsstand I cannot buy from, and I think grandfather would have burned that contract in the ashtray. Cross money is hook money. Everyone on the docks knows it, and nobody on the 40th floor does. Month 11, the Meridian cranes stop moving. Month 14, the trucks stop. Month 16, Vance Group misses a payment, and Cross Capital forecloses on collateral that somehow includes everything my family owns, down to the forks. I watch the empire. I was thrown out of Dye in headlines through a diner window. It does me no good at all. There is a special kind of poverty where your revenge happens without you, and you still cannot afford the coffee you are nursing to watch it. They marry Lily to Kyle Cross that same year, a sweetener stapled to a refinancing deal, 18 years old, in a dress she did not choose. The photo shows her smiling with her mouth only. I stand outside the church across 4 lanes of traffic. Security has my description. 11 months after the wedding, Lily is dead in a hotel room in Miami. The paper calls it an accidental overdose of sleeping pills and gives it 1 column. Kyle Cross is photographed at a boat show 9 days later. I do not sleep for most of a month. After that, I stop wanting things for myself. I want one thing that is not for me. I spend half a year finding the notary whose stamp sat at the bottom of my renunciation, and his name is Holloway, and he is old and sick and drinking in a bar out by the airport. It costs me $400 I saved out of fish money to sit near him for 6 weeks and become the quiet man who listens. One night in March, he cries into his glass and tells me the whole thing unprompted. Gordon brought him the deed already typed. Diane's driver waited outside. They had photographs of Holloway's son at a card game with borrowed money, and a choice: stamp this or the boy loses his hands. He stamped it. He has been drinking at the airport ever since because it is the loudest bar he knows. I record every word of it on a $19 phone. I walk out into the rain with the only weapon I have ever owned, and I am crossing the bridge on Alder Street when a black sedan comes up on the sidewalk behind me at 50 miles an hour. I do not even feel the hit as pain, only as information. The rail, the water, the cold. My last thought is embarrassing and true. I never paid Lily back her $340. Then the water closes and something in the dark says, in a voice like a form being stamped, "Candidate located, contract available, restarting." I wake up on the 3rd bench at the Corridon Street bus station with heat coming up through the slats and a quarter in my jacket pocket. My hands are smooth. No dock scars, no cracks. The duffel bag is under my head. The watch is on my wrist, running 4 minutes slow. In the inside pocket, an envelope with a strawberry sock smell and $340. Across from me, a man is reading the morning paper, and the front page says, "Talks continue on the Meridian expansion. Financing rumored." Rumored. The handshake photo does not exist yet. It is the first morning of my exile, and I have been gone 3 years, and I am back at the top of the slide. I sit very still and check the arithmetic. 7 months until my father signs the Meridian loan with Simon Cross. Around 5 months until they announced Lily's engagement on her 18th birthday. The sweetener got negotiated before the loan did, so the birthday comes first. And 3 years until a black sedan, if I am ever stupid enough to stand on the same bridge. Then a pane of blue glass opens in the air in front of me, and nobody else at the bus station can see it, because nobody screams. The pane says, "Mind Reading System, version 1, bound to operator Adrian Vance. Death of operator voids warranty. 1 prior death detected. Warranty voided. Service will continue anyway as a courtesy." I laugh in a way that makes a pigeon leave. A system. The little blue window every comic I ever read at the laundromat promised to lonely men. It has found the loneliest one on the eastern seaboard, sitting on his own grave 3 years early. I say quietly, into my collar, "Can you hear them think?" The window redraws itself, patient as a clerk. It says, "Designation is aspirational. This system does not read minds. This system reads prices, net worth on skin contact, deal parameters on live negotiation. Hearts, plans, and memories are outside the service area." So the quotation marks around mind reading were doing the same work as the word appears in that lawyer's mouth. Fine. I have been lied to by better. I ask it what it wants. It's dense. It's tree. Its size says, "The system takes no commission. The system is graded on operator net worth at contract end. Current operator net worth, $340.25. Ranking, bottom 2% of adult males in this city." Even the software is disappointed in me. Under that, a new line prints itself, and my skin prickles, because it is the first order anyone has given me in this life. Quest 1. Reach $1,000 within 4 days using readings. Reward, deal parameters unlocked. Failure, feature lock, 30 days. 340 to 1,000 in 4 days, starting from a bus bench. In the first life that climbed took me half a year. Stand up, and my knees feel 19 again. And I know exactly which door I am walking through first, because I have been walking through it in my head for 3 years. The bell over June Park's pawn shop door sounds the same in every life. She looks up from a tray of dead men's rings, 32 years old, reading glasses pushed into her hair. She has no idea she once kept my grandfather in a drawer for 14 months because she does not sell other people's grandfathers. That happens 2 lives from now, in a year that no longer exists. She says, "Buying or selling?" I say, "Selling," and I hold out my hand across the counter, which nobody does in a pawn shop, and she looks at it like I have offered her a fish. Then she shakes it, one firm pump, because June Park was raised right. Blue glass opens over her shoulder. June Park, net worth $41,206. Assets, inventory, 1 paid-off fan, lease deposit. Liabilities, supplier credit, 1 dental bill, disputed. Liquidity, 4,090 in the register safe. The whole shape of a person's life, floating in the air. In numbers, nobody volunteers. My mouth goes dry. This is a loaded gun with a comfortable grip, and I am going to spend this whole second life deciding where it is allowed to point. I unstrap the watch and lay it on the felt pad, and it costs me exactly as much to do it this time as it did the first time. I say, "Family piece, steel, 40 years old, runs 4 minutes slow. I need it back within 30 days, and I need you to not sell it if I am late." June picks it up, reads the case back twice, looks at me longer than the watch. The engraving on the back says, "To the boy who carries water." She does not ask, which is one of the 400 reasons I trust her. She says 180, and the air between us changes because a deal has gone live, and a second pane of glass tries to open over her head and grinds like a jammed drawer and prints 3 words instead: deal parameters locked. Complete quest 1. So the system will show me the whole war only after I have won a fistfight blind. Fair. Grandfather used to say the first dollar is the only one that teaches. I look at June's face instead of the glass, and her face has already told me the true number twice. I say, you gave the case back a second read, and your thumb stayed on the crown. Call it 260 and hold it in the drawer under the register, off the shelf, and in 30 days I pay 300 flat. Her eyebrows go up 1 millimeter. She counts out 260, and while the bills hit the felt, she says, the drawer under the register is for regulars. I say, I plan on being one. And the bell rings me out with the first war chest of the second life in my sock. 260 from the watch, 340 from Lily, the quarter from Trent, $600.25. On the walk to the Marrow Docks, I say it out loud like a psalm, and a woman waiting at the crosswalk moves 3 feet away from me, which is fair. The Saturday flea market at the Marrow Docks is 40 tables of rust, lies, and 1 or 2 miracles. And in my first life, I gutted fish 100 feet from it for a year. I know the tables, I know the faces. Today, I can read the money under the faces. I shake hands like a candidate for city council. A man selling brass fittings, net worth 900, desperation visible without software. A woman with war medals in a shoebox, net worth $211. I spoy en la spice, I put the medals down and do not haggle. I pay her 40 for one I do not even want, because some tables you do not beat, you feed. System prints, sentiment purchase, logged. Inefficient. I tell it some purchases are rent paid to the person I am trying to stay. And it prints, noted, and I would swear the font is skeptical. The brass man is named Wallace, and his table is a funeral. Boat fittings, portholes, cleats, a crate of oarlocks, all of it green with sitting. His rent on the stall is due Monday. His hands say so, and the crate says he priced it in a braver month. 3 rows down there is a contractor named Dario with sawdust on his boots, buying old hardware for a bar he is fitting out on Fulton, the kind of place that sells rust to people in nice coats. His handshake reads 52,000 net and a truck outside. In the first life, I watched arbitrage happen to me. This time, I am the middle. I buy Wallace's whole crate for 140, cash on the wood, and his shoulders come down an inch when the bills land. 20 minutes later, Dario buys the crate off me for 420 without blinking, because I carry it to his truck, and I talk about the harbor the fittings came off of, and a story is worth more than brass. $280 of profit for an hour of walking. At the fish depot, that was 31 hours of gutting. I stand behind a pillar and breathe like I have been running, and the system prints, margin logged, adequate. By Sunday noon, I have flipped a dead outboard motor, a box of hand planes, and a neon sign that says, open with the O burned out. Total capital, $1,060. The window chimes like an elevator arriving. Wang Quest 1 complete. Deal parameters unlocked. On live negotiation, seller floor and buyer ceiling will display. Floor, the lowest they will truly accept. Ceiling, the highest they will truly pay. Numbers refresh with mood. Test it in the far corner on a scalper selling space heaters ahead of the cold week. He says 45, firm as concrete. Over his head, the glass says, floor 19. I offer 21 and let silence do the lifting. And at 23, he shakes my hand and calls me a thief, with something like respect. Walking home with a heater under my arm, I understand what I have actually been given. Every price in this city is 2 prices, the spoken one and the true one, and I am the only man alive who gets both columns. My family built 90 years of money in the gap between those columns. They are about to find out what it feels like when the gap reads back. Monday morning, I put on the cleanest shirt from the duffel and walk into Harbor Adjustments, a collection office over a muffler shop on Canal. 3 desks, 2 phones, 1 man. In my first life, this office called my phone at 7 in the morning for a year over a hospital bill I could not pay. The man is Sal Benetti, 61, tie loosened at 9 in the morning, a photograph of a fishing boat on the wall that his handshake says he cannot afford. Net worth, 91,000, and a folder of dead accounts he keeps like other men keep regrets. I tell him I want the folder nobody works. He laughs without any joy in it and slides me a box. 200 accounts written off, some of them 8 years cold. He says, 30% of anything you shake loose, kid, and I will eat my hat if you clear 500. Here is what a dead ledger looks like from the inside. It looks like Marv Kovac, tow truck driver, 4,100 owed on an engine loan, and when he opens his door in an undershirt, his handshake reads net worth minus 11,000, and a daughter named Josie in St. Anne's Hospital. The office script says push. The floor in the glass says 0, because a man whose kid is on the 4th floor of St. Anne's has nothing, and squeezing him produces nothing except one more man who hates the world. I buy Marv's account out of the dead box myself, $40 against a $4,000 debt, which Sal allows because dead is dead. On his porch, I tear the paper in half and tell him the loan died of old age and the file is closed. Marv looks at the torn paper, then at me, for about as long as a man looks at a card trick. He says, "What do you want?" I say, "Someday I will need things towed and lifted and moved at strange hours, and I will pay fair." And he shakes on it with a hand like a dock cleat. The system prints, asset acquired, 1 tow truck driver, book value 0. I tell it the book is wrong and it prints, noted, in the skeptical font again. Not every door gets mercy. A dermatologist in a marble lobby owes $900 he has dodged for 2 years out of pure sport. His handshake says $400,000 net, and his floor on my settlement offer says he will pay in full if his neighbors are watching. So I come back Saturday when the building association meets in his lobby and discuss his account at conversational volume near the elevator. He writes the check standing up. Sal frames it on the wall where the boat used to be. In 3 weeks, I clear $11,000 of Sal's dead paper, and my cut is $3,300. Sal stops calling me kid. The 2 phone men start calling me the Dowser, the guy with the stick that twitches over buried money, and I let them, because a nickname is cheaper than an explanation. The window keeps score at night on the bench. Operator net worth, $6,000, $9,200, $14,000. Ranking, bottom 2%, then bottom 9, then the high 30s. Climbing out of the basement of the city one settled account at a time. Move off the bench into a room over June's shop, $60 a week, cot and a sink and a window that shows the pawn shop sign. When I hand June the first week's cash, she looks at me and says, "You were on Corridon Street a month ago, and now you bank at my register. What are you?" I say, "A regular, like I promised." She takes the 60 and does not push and adds, "The drawer under the register still has your grandfather in it." He ticks slow, but he ticks honest. The next morning, I count out 300 flat on her counter, inside the 30 days I promised, and the watch comes back to my wrist. I sleep better over her shop than I ever slept in the Vance house. Friday night, I take myself to the anchor room by the marina to eat a steak I can finally afford, and that is where the first life walks in wearing boat shoes. My cousin Trent, Gordon's boy, 27, with 4 friends in matching sunglasses, pushed up in their hair at 9 at night. He spots me at the bar the way a gull spots a dropped fry. He comes over grinning and says, "Boys, this is the cousin I told you about, the one who tried to pickpocket a dead man and got the door." The friends laugh on schedule. Then he does the thing I have been half waiting for. He digs in his pocket and he drops a quarter into my beer from a foot up, plink, and another and a third, and says, "Do the trick, cousin, dive for it. Bus fare is bus fare." The bar goes quiet in a ring around us, the way bars do when the show might be free. Beer climbs the glass and spills a thin sheet onto the wood, and 30 people wait to see which kind of poor man I am, the folding kind or the swinging kind. Anisoas oars are kaiken, and spy am die. Muffin nay, I can't am neither kind. I stand, offer my hand, and say, "Congratulations on the new boat. I hear the slip fees at this marina run $900 a month." He shakes it on reflex, because his whole life is reflex. The glass opens over his sunburned head. Trent Vance. Net worth, $406. Assets, watch, borrowed. Car, leased by Gordon Vance. Allowance, suspended pending family review. Liquidity, $81 cash. $406. The Rolex on his wrist is his father's. The boat is a slip rental, and the family review means Diane has frozen the allowances while the estate settles. My uncle's heir apparent could not cover the round he just ordered. I fish the 3/4 out of my beer, stack them wet on the bar rail by his hand, and say, "Keep them, cousin. You are 75 cents closer to a boat of your own." Then I pay for my steak, and his round too, in 20s, slow. The ring of drinkers does not laugh loud. They laugh low, which is worse, the sound a crowd makes when it changes sides. Trent's neck goes the color of dock paint, and he says, "You counting my money now, freak?" I say, "Somebody in your family should." Walking home, I feel the quarter he threw at the halcyon 3 years and 1 life ago, sitting in my pocket where I have kept it, and the ledger in my chest writes in its neat hand, "First interest payment received." The principal is still owed. The system, which has been quiet all night, prints one line. Hostile contact logged. Subject net worth 406. Threat assessment decorative. Tuesday, an envelope with no return address arrives at Harbor Adjustments, addressed to the new collector with the stick. Inside, a bus card with $20 on it and a note in handwriting I would know in the dark. It says, "Saw a man at the anchor room tell a story about tea and quarters. Was that you? L. Lily, 17, sealed in that house with them, and already smart enough to route mail through my work and not my name. I write back one line through the same route. Careful, boring, deniable. It says, save your money. Strawberry Bank. Interest is coming." Wednesday, Rosa from the flower stand on Canal is in the dead box. 1,100 owed on a loan she co-signed for a nephew who vanished. Her handshake says net worth 3,000 and a floor of everything, meaning she would sell the stand to pay a debt that was never hers. Nephew did not vanish. The glass reads the loan officer when I visit, and his ceiling for making this problem disappear is exactly the size of his fear of an audit, because the cosign signature was witnessed by nobody and notarized after hours. I say the word audit twice in a sentence about the weather, and Rosa's file dies on his desk while I watch. She finds out Thursday when the calls stop. Friday there are flowers on Sal's desk, on mine, and on June's counter, and none of us paid for them. Sal leans back so far, his chair screams and says, "In 31 years of this business, I have collected money, but you collect people. Where does that go, kid?" I say, "Somewhere with better chairs, Sal." 3 months in, the box is not dead anymore, and neither am I. Operator net worth 38,000. The system posts a new line under it like a landlord, sliding a notice under the door. Quest 2. Reach 150,000 within 90 days. Reward, liability ledger unlocked. The debts a person owes and to whom on handshake. Failure. Feature lock, 90 days. The debts a person owes and to whom. I read the line 4 times standing in the dark over June's shop, and somewhere across the river, my family is asleep in beds their lawyers made, and I finally know which crowbar opens that house. You do not rob a rich family through their assets. The assets have guards. You come in through the debts because debts are ashamed of themselves and hide off the books, and a hidden thing has no guard at all. Sal has been photographing that fishing boat for 11 years, the way other men photograph women who left. So I make him the offer at the coffee machine, casual, the way the big ones should be made. 65,000 for harbor adjustments, 20 down, the rest out of earnings over 2 years, and he stays on salary as the license and the face, because the state of my last name is not ready for paperwork. Sal looks at me for a long minute over his cup. He says, "I have watched 100 sharp guys come through this business, and the sharp ones all die broke because sharp cuts the hand that holds it. What are you when nobody is watching, kid?" I tell him the truth, which surprises both of us. I say, I am a man collecting a debt so old, the paperwork is in another life. He nods slowly, the way men nod at weather, and signs and cries a little at the notary, and denies it at lunch. The lending desk opens the same month behind June's shop, a barred window, and a hand-painted sign that says, "Second Chance, Credit." June takes 30%, and the veto on anything that smells, her words, and her nose turns out to be a better instrument than my glass. She catches me reading A Nervous Roofer one afternoon, my eyes flicking up over his shoulder where the numbers hang. After he leaves, she says, "You look over their heads when you decide. Everybody has a tell, but yours is up and to the left." "What is up there, Adrian?" I say, "The weather." She lets it sit exactly long enough to tell me she is not fooled, then stamps the roofer's loan approved, and says, "The weather told you he pays." The weather is usually right, I say. That is the whole conversation, and somehow she owns a piece of me after it. We lend small and honest, 200 to 2,000, posted rates, no fine print, no baseball bats. Rosa sends everyone whose nephew skinned them. Marv sends tow customers whose cars ate their rent. Repayment runs at 96%, which no bank in this city believes. The system posts the tally like a proud parent who would deny being one. Operator net worth 61,079.94. The basement of the city is a floor below me now, and the elevator smells like flowers because Rosa keeps sending them. Now for the crowbar. My Uncle Gordon got Vance ports in the will, the terminals, the cranes, the yard, and a scrap and salvage contract that rebids by sealed envelope every 3 years. The rebid is in 3 weeks. In my first life, an outfit called Rourke Salvage kept it for a decade, and nobody asked how. The yard vendor sees everything, weighs everything, hauls everything. Whoever holds that contract stands inside my uncle's fence with a badge and a clipboard, invited, paid by the family to watch the family. I want inside that fence. I register Marlowe Holdings, a company named after a street nobody in the Vance house ever visited, Marlowe Lane, where my mother's cottage stands, the one my father sold in the first life while I was gutting fish. The name is a debt marker only I can read. For now. The pre-bid conference is donuts and hard hats in a Port Authority trailer. Rourke himself attends, gray crew cut, rings like brass knuckles. I shake his hand as an eager little subcontractor, and the glass gives me his kingdom, net worth $2.1 million, margins fat as harbor seals. When the authority woman talks numbers, Rourke leans back and names his usual fee, like a landlord naming rent. Over his head, the true column prints, floor, $890,000, the lowest annual fee he will truly work for before he walks. Sealed bids open on a Thursday. Rourke bids $1.4 million, because a king does not imagine challengers. Marlowe Holdings bids $870,000, $20,000 under a floor only 2 people in the world know, and one of them thinks it is a private thought. The authority woman reads the envelopes twice. Rourke stands up so fast his chair goes over, and he stares at me across the trailer. And I watch him understand that arithmetic has happened to him, and he cannot prove where. Marlowe Holdings wins the Vance Ports scrap and salvage contract for 3 years. My family will now pay my company $870,000 a year, minus costs, to stand inside their fence and weigh everything they are ashamed of. Gordon signs the vendor approval himself, a signature I frame and hang in the back office. He has no idea whose company he approved. He initials the name of his dead sister-in-law's street without his pen even slowing, which tells you everything about where that family keeps its dead. The system prints, first extraction from target family, logged. Then, after a pause long enough to be theatrical, it adds, the term steal in the operator's private vocabulary is inaccurate. All transfers to date are voluntary and documented. I tell it the family will use a shorter word, and it prints. They usually do. Quest 2 clears on day 30, 152,000 net. The reward hums open like a bank door. Liability ledger unlocked. On handshake, display of debts owed and to whom. I tested on a landlord from my side of the block, a man named Feld who squeezes his tenants like citrus. Handshake. Debts, 12,000, to a bookmaker called Little Ivan, 90 days delinquent. Suddenly, the squeezing has context. Everyone is somebody else's orange. Thursday night, the crowbar gets its first swing at a person instead of a fence. Dario the contractor mentions a card game in the back of the Marina Clubhouse. 5,000 buy-in, rich boys and real money. And the host is a loud kid named Vance who is bad at poker and worse at losing. I put 25,000 in a bank envelope and go to church. The back room smells of cigars and carpet shampoo. 6 players. Trent holds court in a captain's chair with his father's Rolex catching the lamp, and when he sees me, his face does a thing worth the buy-in on its own. He says, they let anybody in here now. Dario says, his money came recommended. Trent laughs and deals me in, because taking my role in front of witnesses is the best idea he has ever had, and Trent backs every idea he has ever had. Here is what poker is when every bet is a live negotiation, and the glass hangs over every head. It is a man showing you his cards through his money. Ceilings rise with real hands and sag with bluffs, and Trent's ceiling swings like a gate in wind, and I fold and wait like winter. By midnight, I am up 9,000 off the others without touching him. Small, polite, boring. Then the hand happens. Trent catches something he loves, and his ceiling goes vertical, past his cash, past cents, and he shoves everything and looks at me with 3 years of family contempt dressed up as a smile. His pile is 4,200 in chips. He pushes the Rolex in after it. Then he writes a marker on a napkin for 6,000 more, signs it Vance, and the table goes church quiet, and his true ceiling reads a number his pockets have never met. I call. He turns over a straight to the 9 and starts raking before my cards move. I lay down the flush a professor of probability would have folded an hour ago, jack high, all diamonds, and the table makes the sound crowds make at fireworks. The rake stops. His hands stay in the chips like they are warming there, Dario says softly, "Count it fair, kid." And the room watches Gordon Vance's heir apparent take his father's watch off the pile and hand it across the felt to the cousin he threw quarters at. I clip the Rolex next to my grandfather's watch, one wrist wearing both bloodlines, the honest steel and the borrowed gold. The marker for 6,000 I hold up, and I say, "Tell your father Marlowe Holdings holds his son's paper, and let him ask you who Marlowe is at Sunday dinner." Trent comes over the table then, all shoulders and inheritance, and Dario and the boat broker catch an arm each. He yells, "The family will end me, that I am nothing, that I was born in a side door." The room hears all of it, and the room includes two men who golf with the Port Authority. I settle up, tip the dealer 300, and stop at the door. I say, "A month ago, you dropped 3 quarters in my beer and told me to dive. Current exchange rate on those quarters, 10,200 and a watch. Keep splashing, cousin." Sunday night, the Vance house has dinner without me for the 200th time, and I am told about it later by someone who was at the table, so I will tell it the way the kitchen door saw it. Gordon carves the lamb and asks Trent where the Rolex is, twice, because the first answer is a story about a jeweler and a clasp. Diane says the allowances stay frozen until the estate clears probate, and her spoon does not pause. Victor takes a phone call in the doorway and says the words cross and flexible and February. Lily asks if anyone has heard from Adrian. The table sound stops. Diane says, "We do not fund ghosts, eat your soup." Lily eats her soup, and under the table her thumb moves on a phone in her lap. And upstairs, a maid strips 4 beds that all slept badly. The bus card message reaches me Monday through the office mail. It says, "T came home without the watch, and D searched his car in the garage like a customs dog. What did you do?" I write back one line, "Taught him the exchange rate. Interest is coming. Strawberry Bank pays first." The system closes the quarter with its usual warmth. Operator net worth, 181,000. New quest available. Reach 1 million within 120 days. Reward, Rikai Rianli Rear. Room mode, all handshake records held and ranked for one gathering at a time. Room mode, every wallet at a party ranked like a leaderboard. I look at the invitation that came through the lending desk this morning. Thick cream paper, the Harbor Charity Gala at the Halcyon Hotel, hosted as every year by Celeste Vance, patron of coastal families. My aunt, who said the service entrance suits me, hosts 300 rich people once a year in the room next to the one where my family cut me out of my own name. Tickets are $2,000 a plate, and Marlowe Holdings can afford a table now. I say, Laldi sa lafo at saktar indestakar. Bapat quo day, mapat parts. No me for one seat under a name nobody checks, and I spend $2,000 for the right to shake my aunt's hand in a room where she cannot refuse it. Some doors you kick. Some doors sell tickets. June closes the shop early and meets me at the tailor because she says a man should not buy his first tuxedo alone. He will come out dressed as a waiter or a casket. She circles me once and tells the tailor, "Take in the shoulders, he fights lighter than he looks." Second Chance Credit bought 2 gala seats through the Small Lenders Association, $800 a seat, and the seating card says A. Cole and Guest, my mother's maiden name, which no Vance ever bothered to learn. The tickets to my own execution room cost $1,600, and I pay in cash. Halcyon at night is all gold light and cold marble, and the receiving line pours past my Aunt Celeste like a river past a statue. This is the architecture of the thing. 300 guests, and every single one must take the hostess by the hand, and so must I, and so must she. George the doorman sees me 30 feet out. His face does 4 things in 2 seconds and lands on a smile he wears at funerals. He says, "Good evening, sir. The awning is dry tonight." I say, "It always was, George," and his ears go pink, and neither of us explains a word of it to June. Celeste recognizes me at one pace. Her smile stays bolted on for the cameras, while her eyes do the arithmetic of a scene versus a handshake, and the room decides for her the way I knew it would. Her hand lands in mine like a dropped glove, fingertips only. She leans close on the shake, smelling of lilies and cellar, and whispers, "The staff entrance is around the back, dear. Someone should have told you." I hold the smile, and the glass opens over her diamonds, and the whisper stops mattering at all. Celeste Vance Arden, net worth minus 6.4 million, liabilities 6.8 million against the Halcyon Hotel, held by Coastal Mutual, interest 90 days late, waiver pending. 810,000 owed to Verrier and Sons Jewelers for the necklace currently worn, minus 6.4 million. My aunt, patron of coastal families, host of the harbor, is the poorest person I have shaken hands with since the bus station, and the necklace on her throat belongs to a jeweler who calls her office twice a week. She laughs at something a senator says. Nobody hears money crying. Behind me in the line, two dowagers murmur that dear Celeste has worn that gown before, 2 seasons ago, at the regatta. The room already knows, the way rooms know, without a single number. The numbers are mine alone, and they say the halcyon is a beautiful drum with nothing inside. Marcus finds me at the raw bar with a banker on each side, because my brother travels with bankers the way generals travel with flags. He looks me over slow, from rented shoes to grandfather's watch, and says they will let anything in for 800 a seat these days. He offers his hand as a joke for the bankers, a thing to be declined so he can laugh. I take it warmly, 2 pumps. Hello, brother. Good to see the family prospering. His jaw sets while the bankers chuckle, and the glass above his excellent haircut prints the truest sentence at this party. Marcus Vance. Net worth on paper, 8.2 million. Liabilities, redemption requests pending at Meridian Harbor Fund, 9.1 million. Personal margin debt, 2.3 million. Liquidity, 140,000. Redemptions of 9 million against a fund that brags 12 under management. My brother is running a bathtub with the drain open, smiling at the faucet, and the family thinks he is the future, and his radio voice orders champagne for men whose money he has already half lost. He leans in on the way past and drops his voice, below banker level. He says, "Whatever you crawled up here to sniff, this is the last room you will do it in. Enjoy the shrimp, Ghost." I eat the shrimp. It is excellent, and I make sure he watches me have seconds. Then the room changes pressure, the way water changes when something big swims in, and Simon Cross comes through the doors with no wife, no watch worth stealing, and a smile like an open drawer of knives. Half the party angles toward him without meaning to. The other half angles away, same reason. In my first life, I saw that face in newsprint the size of a thumbnail, swallowing my family whole from a caption. In this room, he is medium height, medium gray, and the only person present who looks like he is working. He works the crowd the way Sal worked a phone. No wasted calls. Somebody introduces us, Marlowe Holdings, up and coming, took the port scrap contract off Rourke, and Cross turns the full lighthouse of his attention on me for the first time in 2 lifetimes. He says, the sealed bid at 870. That was arithmetic with teeth. As was by force, I cats. Who'd taught you to count, young man? A dead man, I say, which is true 3 different ways. He laughs one dry beat and takes my hand, firm, brief, professional, and the glass opens over the most feared lender on the coast, and I keep my face very, very still. Simon Cross. Net worth, 4.1 million. Liabilities, personal guarantee notes, 19 million, held by the Peng family office, Macau, rolling every 90 days. Liquidity cannot compute, accounts layered. 4 million. The shark that ate my family's 400 million empire is personally thinner than my aunt's necklace debt is wide. Aki Akiskena Steins. Across capital is leverage stacked on leverage, borrowed teeth in a borrowed mouth, and somewhere in Macau, a family named Peng holds a leash nobody at this party can see. I file it the way you file the location of a fire exit. Cross reads my silence as respect, which is close enough, and hands me a card the color of bone. He says, call me when you outgrow the kiddie pool. The kiddie pool tonight is the room his money will strip to the studs by summer. Diane arrives late with Victor's apologies, and no Victor, my father being detained in the city by gentlemen from Cross Capital, which only I find funny enough to bite a knuckle over. Her handshake is a formality she performs like surgery, and her ledger is short and eloquent. Adrian Vance, net worth, personal, 2.2 million liquid, held at 4 institutions under the name Diane Merceau, no joint accounts. Recent activity, weekly transfers out of household accounts, 11 months running. 11 months of quiet weekly transfers into her maiden name. The estate is not even through probate, and my stepmother is already packing a financial parachute, 1 thin layer a week, like a woman moving out of a marriage by teaspoon. Whatever she knows about this family's future, she is dressing for it. At the podium, Celeste announces that tonight, the Harbor families raised $640,000, and the room applauds itself warm. The glass, hanging over her necklace, quietly notes that her own pledge card from last year, $50,000, remains unpaid. The band starts up. Everyone dances on the drum. June appears at my elbow with 2 glasses and follows my eyes around the room once. She says, "You keep weather over some very specific heads, Adrian Cole. Storm coming," I say. For some. She clinks my glass and says, "Then let us drink to umbrellas," and does not ask one more question all night, which is a kind of love. Monday morning, I call the loan desk at Coastal Mutual and ask the tired vice president what he would take. Inlaisonin no fiwasati costalis, today in cash, for the halcyon note, Nidaki tied and size, in a 6.8 million face, 90 days of missed interest, waiver request, sitting in his tray like a wet dog. Spoken answer is par, because banks open at par the way Rourke opened at 1.4. His floor, hanging over the phone receiver in plain blue glass, says 5 million even, because the examiner's visit in March and the note makes his whole book smell. It takes 9 days and 2 lunches. Lane Partners buys the Halcyon note for $4.9 million. It is a new company named for a street with a flooded cottage on it. 1.1 of the money is mine, 1.4 from Dario and 2 poker room fathers who have learned to follow my math, and the bank carries the rest at a polite rate. The system posts Quest 3, complete at 1.1 million net, with more than 3 months still on the clock, and unlocks room mode with the enthusiasm of a stapler, all handshakes at one gathering, held and ranked. I have exactly the gathering in mind. The invitations are already printed. Cream paper, a birthday, the halcyon. 'Cause here is the machine now running under the city, quiet as a tide. My aunt must pay quarterly interest on 6.8 million to whoever holds her note. She has missed 3 quarters and been waived 3 times by a bank that feared the scene. Lane Partners does not fear the scene. Lane Partners has already rented the chairs for it. The waiver denial goes out on letterhead on a Tuesday. Breakfast at the Arden penthouse, as the housekeeper will tell June's cousin, who cooks there, goes as follows. The assistant reads the letter aloud twice. Celeste sets down her cup, asks who on earth is Lane Partners, and calls Verrier and Sons to ask, calmly, about consignment terms for a necklace. The housekeeper is sent out for cigarettes. Celeste quit smoking 9 years ago. 31 days later, on the steps of a courthouse annex that smells of floor wax, the deed to the Halcyon Hotel crosses a table for the price of the debt that strangled it, and a clerk hands the folder to the principal of Lane Partners without looking up. That night, I let myself into the cedar room alone with the master keys. The long table is still there. The chandelier still hums one note above silence. I find the chair they never offered me, the one at the head, and I sit down in my building, in my chair, and let the quiet stretch. 5 months ago, they walked me out through the kitchen steam with a duffel bag. Tonight, the steam, the kitchens, the awning, the marble, the chandelier, and the room where my name died belong to a company named after the street where my mother planted tomatoes. The house wins, June says, of casinos. Fine, I bought the house. I take out my phone and book the cedar room for a private function, 12 days out, same night as a certain birthday party downstairs in the ballroom. The booking name will sit in the hotel ledger where nobody will read it until it is far too late to matter. It says, "The boy who carries water." The bus card messages get shorter as the birthday gets closer, which is how I know the house is squeezing her. Dress fitting number 3, she writes, "I did not pick the dress." Kay at dinner again, his phone under the table the whole time. They keep saying February, like it is a person. February is when the Meridian loan signs. They are stapling my sister to the front of it like a bow on a repossession. The engagement gets announced at her 18th birthday party in the Halcyon ballroom under chandeliers her aunt no longer owns, and the bride finds out with the rest of the room. I write back one line, "Wear shoes you can dance in. Nothing at that party will go the way they planned it, Strawberry." Then I spend 12 days making that sentence true, which is the correct order of operations. Promise first, arithmetic after. Grandfather worked that way too. Here is the arithmetic. Vance Ports has been paying its suppliers slow ever since Diane froze the family cash. 60 days, then 90, the way proud houses starve quietly before they fall. Slow paper trades at a discount, and 3 little companies with streets for names have been buying it all autumn. By the week of the party, 3 companies with street names hold the proof. Marlowe, Lane, and a new one called Corridon own 2.6 million of port payables and a marker signed Vance on a poker napkin. They also hold 90 days of yard-scale records. The records show my Uncle Gordon selling scrap off the books through a cousin outfit in Jersey, 11 trucks of it, weighed by my own clipboards. Dowry in the marriage contract, per lawyer June knows who drinks where hotel lawyers drink, is a block of Vance Port's preferred shares, pledged to the Cross family on the wedding day. My father is paying for a rescue with a daughter and a port, and the port has termites in every beam, and I own the termites. The night itself arrives in gold. 300 guests, a band with a good basis, an ice sculpture of a swan that Celeste ordered from habit and my hotel quietly paid for because the birthday is downstairs in the ballroom, and the bill goes upstairs to me. I dress in the cedar room with the lights off. Room mode wakes when I walk the floor, and the leaderboard assembles like gulls behind a ferry. The system prints, room mode active, one roof, one gathering, every hand under it counts as shaken. 300 handshakes ranked by net worth, and the mathematics of high society stand naked between the canapé trays. Number one in the room is the senator's widowed mother, quiet in gray wool, 410 million from patents nobody remembers. Brother Marcus, in the best tuxedo on the floor, ranks 211th, directly below the bassist, who has no debts and owns his instrument outright. Simon Cross ranks 14th. My stepmother outranks my father, 2.2 million against a number with parentheses around it. Victor Vance, a chairman of everything, has already pledged his shares into the Meridian negotiation. The glass quietly renders my father in the accounting notation reserved for a negative number. I take a glass of nothing from a tray and watch my family orbit their guests, and the system prints the summary with its stapler warmth. Gathering audit complete. Combined declared wealth of target family, 91 million. Combined actual, 11.4. Discrepancy, mostly hats. Kinasa skakrin. Don't do soul channel. Kyle Cross finds the bar, the way water finds a drain. 26, beautiful teeth, bored the way only heirs are bored. He does not know my face, which stings less than it should. I buy him a drink and let him complain. And when we shake on some joke, his ledger opens like a dropped paperback. Gambling app debts, 91,000, hidden behind a friend's name. Trust locked until 30, uncle as sole trustee. And when the talk drifts to the announcement coming at 10, his whole posture files a complaint, and the glass reads his true feelings in the only language it speaks. Subject values engagement at negative. Walkaway floor, $0 and a plane ticket. My sister is being married to a man who would pay nothing at all to keep her, and a baggage fee to escape her, and his uncle knows it, and my father knows it, and the champagne is excellent, and I could tip the ice swan over onto all of them. Instead, I find Simon Cross by the terrace doors, where he stands with his back to the party like a man at an aquarium, watching the fish pretend the glass is not there. He remembers me instantly, which is its own kind of red. Marlowe of the sealed bid, he says. You keep interesting company now. I say, I keep interesting paper, and I hand him a folder, plain manila, the kind that has ended more marriages than lipstick. Inside, a season of yard-scale records, 11 trucks, a Jersey cousin, and a stack of past-due port payables with 3 street names where the creditors go. I tell him the truth like a gift, because with a man like Cross, the truth is the only bait that does not smell. Dowry shares you are taking at 10 tonight sit on a port that owes 2.6 million it cannot pay, run by a man skimming his own yard, and the paper is all in hands that do not like your borrower. Cross reads faster than any human I have ever watched, and his face does absolutely nothing the entire time, which is how I know it landed. He closes the folder and looks at me for 6 full seconds. He says, "Why bring this to me and lose your leverage, Mr. Marlowe of the streets with no houses on them?" "Because it is not lost," I say. "It is invested. You are about to reprice this family, and I want you doing it with clean numbers, and someday soon, you and I will have a longer conversation about teeth. Tonight, all I want is for there to be no wedding stapled to your term sheet." Somewhere behind us, Diane is tapping a glass with a spoon, ringing the room to order, radiant as a woman finishing a 2-year project. She gets as far as "tonight our 2 families," when Simon Cross turns from the terrace doors and says, in a voice that carries like winter, a small correction, if the room permits. The Cross family, he says, has the greatest respect for the Vances and has concluded that the young people would be better served by patience and that matters of finance and matters of family are best not signed on the same line. He raises his glass. To the birthday girl, he says, 18, the best age because nothing is signed yet. 300 guests drink to my sister because there is nothing else in their hands to do. The band, which has been paid by the house and told by the house what to do on this exact cue, comes in loud and cheerful on the downbeat, and the party swallows the corpse of the announcement whole. I watch my father's face fall off its bones and get put back in under 2 seconds, a repair so fast only a son would see it. I watch Diane set down the spoon with a click like a safety going on. And I watch Lily, center of the floor in a dress she did not pick, close her eyes and breathe for the first time in 5 weeks. Gordon reaches me first, with Marcus half a step behind, the two of them moving through guests like customs men. Gordon grips my elbow hard, old Doc strength in it, and says, "Whatever you are doing here, it ends now." Marcus signals the floor manager, 2 fingers, the family gesture for take out the trash. Floor manager is a good man named Ibanez, who has worked this room 19 years and was fired by Celeste's people, once for unionizing the banquet staff, then rehired by the new owner at a better wage. He crosses to us quickly. Then he stands next to me, folds his hands, and asks if my party requires anything from the house. The word house does its work slowly, like ice cracking on a pond. Marcus repeats the gesture. Ibanez does not move. Victor arrives, chairman voice on, and says, "This is a private event, and whoever let this person in will answer for it." I let the silence get expensive. Then I spend it. "Nobody let me in," I say. "I let you in." The halcyon changed hands 12 days ago on the courthouse steps. Note, deed, keys, awning, swan. You are standing in my ballroom, drinking my champagne, under my chandeliers, at a party my building is quietly comping. Because family is family. I say it at a volume for 6 people, and it reaches 60, because rooms like this are built of ears. My father looks at me the way you look at a wall where a door used to be. Gordon's hand comes off my elbow finger by finger, like a man unloading a gun he suddenly cannot afford to fire. Celeste gets there late, catches the shape of it from faces, and says, "To no one he cannot be. I sold to a fund. There were partners. There was letterhead." There were, I agree, lane partners. The lane runs past a cottage with tomatoes. You have eaten dinner 11 feet from that deed for years and never once read a line of it. And here my father does the only thing that still has power to cut. He puts out his hand, formal, public, chairman to stranger, a handshake for the watching room, teeth clenched behind the smile. He says, "Lo, congratulations on the hotel. Your mother would be ashamed of how you got it." I take the hand. The glass opens one last time tonight and shows me a man with parentheses where his fortune was, 91 days from signing away the rest, cash in pocket smaller than his own doorman's. I hold the shake 1 beat too long so the cameras get it, us smiling, my hand above. "She planted tomatoes on Marlowe Lane," I say, at the volume of family. "You sold the cottage before the ground thawed. Go check who owns it now, and the fence, and the dirt, and the name on the mailbox, and then explain to me again what she would be ashamed of, and I will listen all night." He has no next line, and a chairman without a next line is a man in a rented suit. I leave him standing in it. On my way out, I stop at the birthday girl, kiss the top of her head, and put nothing in her hand, because every eye in the room is a customs man now. She finds me anyway, 4 minutes later, by the service stairs, where the kitchen steam smells like the worst night of my first life. Yimatakchin masaksanaking. She hits my chest with both fists once, then hugs me hard enough to move ribs, and says, "You could have told me, you enormous idiot, I thought tonight was my funeral." I show her a passbook instead of a speech. Harborside Teachers Credit Union. Opened in her name 4 months ago, balance $3,400. The Strawberry Bank, paying first interest on $340 of birthday money that bought bread and a bus card when I had a quarter to my name. "Nobody marries you to a balance sheet," I tell her, "not while I have a pulse and a ledger." She laughs and cries in the industrial lighting, 18 years old, and says, "They are going to come at you with everything now." I say, "I am counting on it," and both of us can hear that I mean the arithmetic. Simon Cross's car sits across the avenue for 20 minutes after the valets stop being busy. Through the glass, the shape of him does not move. Then the window comes down 2 inches. A cigarette comes out unlit and goes back in, and the car pulls off slow past the awning, and the driver takes the long way around the block. Twice. The system waits until I am alone in the cedar room with my tie undone before it files the night. Operator net worth, 2.3 million. Target family declared wealth, intact. Actual, bleeding from 4 wounds, 3 of them unnoticed. New quest, 10 million within 180 days. Reward issued in advance as a courtesy, the warranty being void anyway. Movement alerts on all stored ledgers, active now. The grade still wants 10 million. Movement alerts. Every stored handshake in this city, wired to ping me when their money lurches. I look at the swan melting into its tray at the end of the emptied ballroom, and I accept the quest, and somewhere below the harbor turns over in its sleep. War then. Openly now, on lawyer's letterhead, instead of poker napkins. Good. I have been rehearsing this argument for 2 lives, and they are finally all in the room where it started. And the room is mine. The first shell lands on a Thursday, page 5 of the Ledger Courier, with a photograph of my lending window shot from an angle that makes the bars look like teeth. Disgraced Vance son resurfaces as loan shark to the harbor poor. Sources say grief money funds the operation. Sources say 2 words doing the work of a shovel. The byline is a man who owes his editor money per 1 handshake at a press dinner, and the editor golfs with a public relations firm on retainer to Meridian Harbor Fund. It costs Marcus maybe $4,000, this story. It is meant to cost me the Small Lenders Association, the bank desk, and June. June reads it at the counter, flattens the page, and tapes it in the shop window facing out with a marker note underneath. She writes, "Ask the neighborhood." Then she goes back to pricing a tray of rings, and if you want to know what a spine looks like, it is a pawnbroker, taping the artillery to her own glass. Neighborhood answers all week. Rosa parks her flower cart in front of my office and sells out doing it. Marv tows the byline reporter's illegally parked hatchback to the impound lot with ceremonial slowness while a crowd claps. The roofer, whose loan the weather approved, sends his crew to fix my gutter unasked. Invoice, $1, memo line, for the interest. Then Ada Merle calls. The reporter who has been circling cross-capital for 2 years like weather around a lighthouse. She asks for 1 hour and my books. I give her 3 hours, the 96% repayment ledger, and the dermatologist story with the name sanded off. And I watch her fall in love with the arithmetic the way honest people do. Her piece runs Sunday, front of the money section. The pawnshop bank of Canal Street posted rates in a city of fine print and a photograph of Rosa's cart in full bloom in front of my bars. Smear dies of daylight in 4 days, and the Lenders Association reinstates me with a fruit basket, which June eats. The second shell is quieter. Harborside Federal freezes the operating account pending a compliance review nobody can name, and the branch president stops returning Sal's calls. So, I attend the branch president's Rotary lunch and shake his hand about the weather, and his ledger explains the freeze better than he ever could. 1.1 million of his personal money sits in Meridian Harbor Fund, and his redemption request has been pending 40 days, and Marcus called him twice this month. And men do favors for the man holding their money the way dogs sit for the man holding the bowl. I am nasasako I need son where I do kinds. Do not threaten him. I tell him the truth like a weather report. No attribution, no price. Redemptions are stacking at Meridian 9 deep. First out gets par, last out gets a lesson. And were I a man with 1.1 million sleeping there, I would wake it up gently and soon. He goes pale around the eyes, mumbles about paperwork errors, and my account thaws by Tuesday. By Friday, per the movement alerts, 1.1 million walks out of my brother's fund with its shoes in its hand, and 2 golf partners follow it, because money travels in foursomes. The system pings each exit like a doorbell. Meridian Harbor Fund liquidity 110,000, 91,000, 62. My brother is now a bathtub with the drain open and both taps rusted shut, and he has stopped ordering champagne, and his tailor's invoice has gone to a second notice, which for Marcus is a nosebleed at altitude. Gordon tries Spite next, because Spite is free. The yard gates lock against Marlowe trucks on a Monday. Some theater about insurance certificates, and my uncle stands at the fence with his arms crossed, watching my drivers idle, enjoying the only kind of power he has left. the power to make people wait. The contract he signed without reading charges the port $400 per truck per idle hour, Section 9, Clause 3. I let him enjoy the fence for 2 days. Then the invoice arrives at his office, $11,600, payable on receipt, with a photocopy of his own initials on the clause, and a note that says, "Happy to discuss at Sunday dinner." He pays. The Port Authority loves the vendor who came in $500,000 under Rourke, so it sends Gordon's office a reminder about vendor interference. My trucks roll through the gates Wednesday. The gateman, who is Marv's brother-in-law, waves them in like a parade marshal. But Spite is a schoolyard, and the real business is a bar by the airport, and I go there on a Tuesday because of one line in a movement alert. Meridian Harbor Fund, office line, 3 outgoing calls to Holloway, notary, all 3 unreturned. My brother is tidying. There is a paper he would like reaffirmed, while it is still the only copy of the truth. The bar is the loudest one Holloway knows. Planes every 90 seconds, a jukebox with a broken volume knob, and him at the end of it, 71 years old, drinking rye like it is a job he was demoted into. I sit down and order the same, and for a while we listen to the planes together like it is church. Then I say, 6 years ago, a man brought you a deed already typed, and photographs of your son at a card table with borrowed money, and a choice with only one side to it. His glass stops. His hands begin that old tremble I remember from another life. The tremble that took 3 years and a bridge to find last time. He says, "I do not know what you," and I put 2 things on the bar, gently. A paid in full note for $11,000 his son owed a bookmaker called Little Ivan, purchased last month by a company named for a bus station street, and a business card for the scale office at the port, day shift, benefits, a foreman who owes your family nothing. Your boy owes no one, I say, and he starts Monday if he wants it, and neither thing is a trade. Both are already done and cannot be taken back. I am not the man with the photographs, Mr. Holloway. I am the boy from the bottom of the deed. And the jukebox plays and a plane goes over, and the old man puts both hands flat on the bar and weeps like weather breaking. We do it correctly, which matters. 2 lawyers, one his, paid by me through a bar association referral, so no one can say I bought the counsel. A video deposition, 4 cameras of it, the whole chain, Gordon with the typed deed, the driver outside, the photographs, the stamp. Copies sealed in 3 places, one with Ada Merle marked open upon harm. At the end, on camera he says, I have stamped 41 years of other people's truth and 1 lie, and the lie paid for nothing but this bar. Then he asks me, off camera, what I want him to do in February. Nothing, I say. Stay loud, stay lit, answer no calls. February is already sold. The watch goes in for its cleaning that same week, because I leave it with June twice a year, the way some men go to confession. She calls me down an hour later, with her loop still in her eye and the case back off, and her voice has the flat tone she saves for finding out a diamond is glass. Someone opened this before me, she says, years ago, with a coin. See the chew marks on the slots, and there is a second back under the first, friction fit, which is watchmaker language for a place to hide something from everyone except a watchmaker. She looks up. Do I open it, or do you? Her hands are steadier. Under the false back, pressed flat in oiled paper, there is a small brass key stamped Harbor Union Trust and a paper tag in my grandfather's square hand. Box 104. And under that, 4 words that reach across 2 lives and take my throat. For the Waterboy. Harbor Union Trust is 9 blocks away and 80 years old. Marble like a mausoleum. And the box officer matches the key. Checks my identification against a card my grandfather filed, the year I turned 9. And says, longest standing instruction in the branch. Box 104 holds 1 letter and 1 notebook, and no money at all. The letter is dated 11 days before he died. It says, Adrian, I watched my sons learn arithmetic and never once watched them learn weight. If you are holding this, they took the paper road, as I feared they would, and the stake found you anyway, or you found it. The watch was the test. A man who keeps a slow watch through a hard year is a man who can carry water. It says, I could not prove what your stepmother proposed in my own study 9 years ago. Insurance, she called it, against the second wife's boy. I was old, and I let the word insurance sit in the room unchallenged, and I have been paying that silence since. So I armed you instead. The book is the armory. Spend it slow. The notebook is 40 pages of my grandfather's tiny square capitals, dates, amounts, names. Gordon's Jersey scrap runs, going back 9 years, 11 trucks a season even then. A permit for the Meridian Pier, fast-tracked through a councilman named Bricks for $60,000 in landscaping invoices that landscape nothing. Diane's first quiet accounts opened the year the word insurance was said. I read it twice in the marble room. And what lands hardest is none of the crimes. It is that he knew, and he sat at that long table every Sunday for years, carving the lamb, watching them, weighing them, and the only person he told was a wristwatch. Families like mine do not have conversations. They have vaults. Sunday, I drive out to Marlowe Lane, because after the vault, I need the fence. The cottage came back to me in the second month of Lane Partners, 40 months of my mother's mortgage payments cheap, from a flipper who had painted it gray and killed her tomatoes with gravel, decorative low maintenance. The gravel is gone now. I dug it out myself over 4 Sundays with a rented truck and my own hands, and the beds are turned and staked the way she kept them, and the mailbox says A. Cole. The fence is her blue again, the wrong blue, the one the neighbors voted against twice. I sit on the step an hour and do not check one alert. Lily takes a bus out the following Sunday, in sunglasses and a borrowed coat like a spy in a school play. She stands in the yard a long time. Then she says, I remember her here. I was 5. She gave me a tomato like it was an apple, and Diane threw it away because acid stains. We plant the last 2 stakes together, and she cries exactly once at the mailbox. Across the river that same night, the lights on the 40th floor of the Meridian Harbor Fund burn late. An assistant carries in redemption letters, 9 of them, and reads the names out loud, one at a time, while Marcus stands at the window, not turning around. The PR man waits by the door with a folder he has not been asked for and is afraid to open. On the desk, a compliance notice from the fund's own custodian, gently worded, 72 hours to post collateral. In the top drawer, a phone still in its box, the cheap kind, cash kind, the kind a careful man buys and tells himself is for emergencies. The drawer stays open a long moment. Then it closes and the office lights go out floor by floor. The alerts sing me to sleep over June's shop like harbor bells. Diane Merceau, transfer volume doubled, Thursday, then doubled again. Simon Cross, Macau notes rolled at penalty rate, 90-day fuse relit at a price. Meridian Harbor Fund, liquidity, 40,000. Operator net worth, 4.6 million. June brings up tea and sees the numbers in my face. The way she does, she says, your brother's thing is cracking then. I say, by February it stops being a fund and starts being a verdict. And when a man like Marcus runs out of bankers, he goes shopping for something simpler. She asks, simpler how? I say, cornered. The alert that matters most does not come from a bank. It comes from a tow yard at 11 at night in Marv's voice on a phone that costs $9. He says, kid, you know a black sedan, no plates, been sitting on your block 3 nights, engine warm each time I roll past. My neck goes cold in a way that has nothing to do with the night. Black sedan on my block. In my first life, a black sedan came up onto the sidewalk of the Alder Street Bridge at 50 miles an hour, and I went into the water with a recording in my pocket and Lily's $340 unpaid, and something in the dark said restarting. At iski stepansai, isti chunanluin banaisti, isti stikai. I have been careful never to stand on that bridge in this life. I forgot that a bridge is only one place, and a car will come to you. I do not run. Running is what the frightened boy from the first life would do, and he is dead, and I inherited his caution, but not his fear. Instead, I do the thing the second life has taught me. I find out who is driving, because a car is just a man, and a man is just a ledger, and every ledger has a door in it. Marv gets me a plate off a gas station camera 2 blocks over. The plate gets me a name through a contact at the impound who owes the tow yard favors. The name is Denny Falk. 38, freelance, the kind of man who drives things and asks nothing. Twice arrested, never charged. I do not send anyone after him. I send myself to a diner in daylight. I sit down across from Denny Falk with 2 coffees already ordered and my hands flat on the table where he can see them. I dice a spy and downstice. I say you have been paid to hurt me, and I am not here to fight you. I am here to outbid the man who hired you, and before you decide anything, shake my hand, because I want you to see that I am not wired and not a cop. He shakes it, because curiosity is stronger than sense in men who drive for a living. Denny Falk, net worth minus 19,000, Debts, 14,000 medical, St. Anne's Hospital, pediatric oncology in arrears. And the name on the account when the glass drills down the way it does now is Sadie Falk, age 9. The room tilts. I have read a ledger like this before, Marv Kovacs, another driver with a girl on that same ward, and the world is very small when you read it in numbers. I do not tell him any of that. I tell him about his daughter's balance, the exact figure, the arrears date, the name of the billing supervisor, and I watch a professional nobody's face come apart at the seams, because the one thing a careful man cannot survive is being read down to the child. He says, "Lo, how do you know that?" I say, the same way I know the man who hired you is going to let you take the fall for it, because that is what he does. It is the only move he has. Here is the truth, I tell Denny, and I slide a folder across the sticky table. Simon Cross did not hire you. Cross is too clean for road work now. He buys men who buy men. This came down through Marcus Vance's fund, through a fixer named Boyd, and the instant a car goes off a bridge, Boyd stops answering. And you are a freelancer with a record and a sick kid and no lawyer holding a body. I have watched this exact play from the other end. I know how it finishes for the driver. Then I make the only kind of offer I have ever trusted, the kind that is already done before it is spoken. Sadie's balance at St. Anne's is paid, I say this morning before I sat down. Whatever you decide in the next 5 minutes, and here is the receipt, because I will not own a man through his child. That is their move, not mine. He looks at the receipt for a long time. A grown man crying into diner coffee is the second one this month, and I am starting to understand that this is what the work actually is. What I want, I tell him, is not for you to fail to kill me. What I want is for you to succeed on paper, and I explain it. And Denny Falk, who came to end me, starts to smile the way men smile when they are handed away to be something other than the worst thing they were about to do. We stage it clean over 9 days, with one lawyer and one very bored private investigator holding the cameras. Denny keeps taking Boyd's money and Boyd's calls, wired now. Every syllable, Boyd naming the price, naming the bridge, naming Marcus's fund as the well the money comes from, complaining about the fund being slow to pay even for this. Boyd on tape is a confession with a haircut. On the 10th night, the black sedan comes up onto the sidewalk on Corydon Street by the bus station. 3 traffic cameras watch it. Cameras the city hung years ago that I paid nothing for. The car hits a mannequin in my coat at a carefully survivable 15 miles an hour. Then Denny Falk skids it into a hydrant on purpose and calls it in himself. The photographs are convincing. The mannequin is not. The story that runs briefly in the same Ledger Courier that called me a shark is that the disgraced Vance son was struck by a car and is in critical condition, sources say. I read it from a perfectly good chair in the cedar room with a cup of coffee, alive, and I let it stand for exactly 36 hours because a man who thinks you are dying will reach for things he keeps hidden while you are well. They reach. Oh, they reach. Marcus calls Boyd 4 times in a day, per the wire, voice climbing. Is it done? Is it clean? Is the driver holding? And Boyd soothes him like a nurse, and every word spools onto tape in a lawyer's office with a notary present. Diane doubles her transfers again, then triples them, a woman clearing a house before the smell reaches the street, and Gordon, God help him, calls a florist. But the one who breaks my heart in the wreckage of their reaching is my father. Victor Vance does not call Boyd, does not move money, does not send flowers. He drives alone at night to St. Anne's Hospital, where the papers say I am. He sits in the parking lot for 2 hours and never goes in. Marv, who is watching for me, photographs a chairman weeping in a parked car and does not know why the picture makes him take off his hat. Let the resurrection wait until it will hurt the most, which is the arithmetic of theater, and grandfather would approve. Ada Merle holds the Boyd tapes, sealed. The lawyer holds Denny's sworn account and the receipt for Sadie's care, which proves the driver was bought away from murder and not into it. And I hold the one thing money never bought me in either life, which is a man who was sent to kill me and chose in a diner over bad coffee to be a father instead of a weapon. Denny asks me, at the last meeting before he takes his daughter to a specialist 3 states away on a bus ticket, I did not buy him because he would not let me. Why I trusted him after he took the job. I tell him the truth. I say, I read your debts and they were all for her, not $1 for yourself. And a man whose entire deficit is love is a man you can stand in front of with your hands flat on a table. He shakes my hand one more time, and the glass says net worth minus 5,000 now, and rising, and I count that as the richest read of the whole life. The system, which has been silent through all of it, the way it goes silent when the work stops being about money, prints one line as Denny's bus pulls out. Assassination attempt converted to evidence. Operator survival confirmed. Then, after a long pause, in the plain font it uses only rarely, it adds, this outcome was not available through arithmetic alone. I tell it, I know. It does not answer, which is the closest the software ever comes to respect. Now the pieces are all on the felt. A forged deed with a filmed confession under it. A fund bleeding out 9 redemptions deep with a murder tape in its plumbing. A stepmother packed to run. An uncle skimming his own yard onto my clipboards. A father who wept in a parking lot for a son he helped exile. And a shark in Macau clothing whose 19 million in personal notes rolls at a penalty rate now in 11 days. 11 days. February. The Meridian loan signs on the 14th in the Vance Group boardroom, my family pledging the last unmortgaged bones of the company to Simon Cross to stop the bleeding they cannot see the shape of. They think they are being rescued. I stas idashengestat adinfos benepate, when darkness for our kind. They are being repriced, and I am the one who taught the man his own new prices, and I am going to be in the building when the number comes due. Because I have learned the one thing my grandfather put in a watch for me to find. You do not beat a family like mine in the newspapers, or the courts, or the street. You beat them at the long table, on a Sunday, with the lamb between you, by being the last person holding every debt when the reading stops. And this time, when the lawyer reads the paper, it will be my paper, and the security guards along the wall will be mine, and the chair at the head will already have me in it. Simon Cross takes meetings on a boat, which tells you everything about a man before he opens his mouth. The boat does not leave the slip. It is an office that happens to float, so that everyone who comes aboard is slightly seasick and slightly reminded whose water they stand on. I come aboard steady, because I gutted fish on worse decks for a year, and steadiness is its own opening bid. He pours 2 glasses of something older than my second life and does not drink his, which I note. He says, the birthday party was expensive theater, Mr. Marlowe. Or should I use the other name now? The papers have found it. Adrian. He tastes it. The exile with the pawnshop bank. You cost me a clean dowry and a quiet quarter. Convince me you are worth more as a partner than as a problem. I do not sit. I put a single sheet of paper on his desk, and it is not about my family at all, which is the only reason he keeps reading past the first line. It is a summary of $19 million in personal guarantee notes held by the Peng family office in Macau, rolling every 90 days, repriced upward 3 weeks ago at a penalty rate that has quietly begun to eat him alive. His own leash drawn to scale. His face does the nothing it does, but his hand sets the glass down without a sound, which for Cross is a scream. He says, where did you get pen paper? I say, I did not get it. Not yet. I priced it. The way I price everything. And here is the thing you need to understand about me before we talk about my family. I am not trying to destroy you, Simon. I am trying to buy you. There is a difference, and it is the only difference that has ever kept me warm. Then I explain the shape of it, slowly, because a man who is drowning needs the rope described before he will grab it. The Peng family wants out of small foreign guarantees and into one clean domestic buyer with real collateral. I have been talking to their people for 2 months. I now own a hotel, a port contract, and $4 million in transparent cash. That is exactly the kind of boring, well-lit balance sheet a Macau office likes to roll its risk into. Waikatsuki Nichi, Yosai. I can buy your 19 million in notes at a discount the Pengs will happily take. And the day I do, your leash changes hands. Cross understands leverage the way sharks understand blood, instantly and without sentiment. He says, so you become the man who can call my notes. Why would I ever sign that? I Kurchuai Anmasa Stokure. Because right now, the Pengs can call them, and the Pengs do not take meetings, they take everything, and a penalty rate is the sound of a clock. I am offering to be a creditor who takes meetings. You have never in your life had a creditor who takes meetings. That is what I am selling. Reach. And here I give him the piece that turns a threat into a partnership, because grandfather's notebook taught me that you never leave a cornered man without a door, you only choose which door. I do not want your business, Simon. I want one afternoon of it. On February 14th, my family signs the Meridian loan in their own boardroom and pledges the last clean shares of Vance Group to Cross Capital. I want you to be there. And my furdui di yipers fees so high ava, and I want you to reprice that deal at the table with I at the wag and vo imnoi at that table with the true numbers out loud. Eins by force ust ons I'll deuce the y and forward sets. And I'll do that, and I roll your pung notes into a domestic facility at a rate that lets you sleep. And you keep your empire, minus the appetite for mine. He is quiet for a long time, and a gull walks the rail, and the harbor slaps the hull. Then Simon Cross does something I have never seen him do in 2 lifetimes of watching him from newsprint and across rooms. He laughs, a real one, short and surprised, the laugh of a man who has met the one animal in the water he did not expect. He says, "Your grandfather was in shipping when I was in short pants, and he had this exact trick. He would hand you a knife and thank you for stabbing him in the direction he was already falling. You are the water boy then. He mentioned you once at a dinner years ago, said the family had one son who counted weight instead of money, and they would throw that one away first. We do the paper properly. 4 lawyers, 2 jurisdictions, a translator for the Macau side, who I pay to be exactly accurate and nothing more. It takes 9 days of the 11. On the morning of the 13th, a domestic facility buys the notes. It is named for no street at all, because some doors you do not decorate. It purchases $19 million in Simon Cross's personal guarantee notes from the Peng family office at 71 cents. The most feared lender on the coast becomes, quietly, my borrower. The system does not celebrate. It does something stranger. It prints Apex Predator of local market, reclassified, and then, below it, in the plain font, the shark now swims inside the tank. I tell it that is unusually poetic for a stapler. It prints, the operator's influence corrupts the interface, and I choose to believe the software is joking, because after 7 months together, we have earned a joke. Cross keeps his side without being reminded, which is how I know I read him right. He calls my father on the 11th, on a line my father does not know is recorded. He says the Cross family looks forward to the signing on the 14th. Then he adds casually that his people have finished due diligence on the Vance Group collateral. There may be some adjustments to discuss at the table, he says, and he lets that last word sit. Victor thanks him. Victor has no idea he has just been told the exact hour of the end, in a friendly voice, by a man reading from my script. The last piece is the smallest and the heaviest. I go to see the family lawyer, Aldous Prentice, the 60-year-old who read my forged renunciation 3 years and 1 life ago, and said, "This appears to be in order," and whose mouth twitched like he smelled old fish even as he said it. He is retired now, or shelved, the family having replaced him with a firm that asks fewer questions. I find him in a member's library that smells of leather and regret, and I do not shake his hand, because I already know what his ledger says, and this visit is not about money. I put the sealed Holloway deposition on the table between us and the notebook, and I say, "You knew 3 years ago. You held that deed and you knew it was wrong, and you said the one word that let it pass, appears. Then you spent 3 years on the golf course pretending appears was the same as is. Old fish, Mr. Prentice. You said it smelled of old fish and you signed anyway. I am not here to ruin you. I am here to give you the one thing you have wanted since that afternoon, which is the chance to be the man who read the will correctly." Prentice looks at the deposition and at the notebook in my grandfather's square hand, and his hands settle flat on the folder and go still, knuckles whitening, and he is quiet a long time. He says, "Elias asked me to protect that boy, and I protected the family instead because the family paid the retainer, and I have told myself 100 rounds of golf that those were the same thing. They were not." He presses a cloth handkerchief once to his mouth, folded, ironed, the last dignity of a compromised man. "What do you need me to do?" "Read the will again," I tell him. On February 14th, in that boardroom, in front of everyone, read my grandfather's actual will, the real codicil, the true stake, and then read the deed, and then play the tape. You are the only man alive whose voice that room is trained to believe, because you are the one who lied to them last time. Let the same mouth that said appears say the truth, and it will land like a verdict because it will be a confession and an inheritance in the same breath. He agrees before I finish, and he does not ask for anything, and that is how I know grandfather chose his lawyer better than he chose his sons. The night before, I cannot sleep, so I do what I have done the night before, every hard thing in this life. I climb the stairs over June's shop, and she is still awake, because she is always still awake, and she pours 2 cups of tea and sets my grandfather's watch on the table between us, cleaned, wound, running its honest 4 minutes slow. She says, "Tomorrow you get the chair." I say, "I already have the chair. Tomorrow they find out." She turns the watch so the case back faces me, to the boy who carries water, and she says, "Whatever happens in that room, you already carried it. The rest is just them getting wet." I do not have a joke for that. So I drink my tea, and for once, the ledger in my chest is quiet. February 14th comes in gray and honest. No snow, just a hard, flat light off the harbor. I dress in the cedar room, because I have slept there 3 nights. I clip both watches to my left wrist, grandfather's steel and Trent's borrowed gold. 1 bloodline honest and 1 bloodline owed. The Vance Group boardroom is 9 floors up, in a building my family still thinks it owns. And it does own it, until about 11 o'clock this morning. The room fills the way these rooms always fill, by rank and by fear. My father at the head, chairman, gray at the temples now in a way 3 years cost him. Gordon and Marcus flanking. Celeste, thinner, her jeweler's necklace replaced by a lesser one. Diane at the far end with a leather folder and a car idling downstairs. I would bet the hotel on it. The cross team along one wall and 2 chairs empty, which nobody comments on, because nobody counts chairs but me. They have brought their new lawyers, their signing pens, and a bottle of the good champagne on ice for after. Today, my family believes they are being saved. The Meridian loan closing, the last shares pledged, Simon Cross's money flooding in to plug 3 years of holes. My father actually smiles when the cross team arrives. It is the last time I will see him smile as a rich man, and some small buried boy in me is sorry about it, and the rest of me has waited 2 lifetimes. I come in as the 11 o'clock item. I put myself on the agenda through a shareholder motion, which my 31% entitles me to file, and the paper goes in under the hand of Aldous Prentice, counsel to the estate, whose standing no clerk in this building questions. That 31% becomes legally mine the moment the forged deed is voided. The moment has not happened yet. It is written into the next 90 minutes like a fault line. The room turns. Gordon half rises. Security along the wall shifts, and then does not move, because the security along the wall signed with a new contractor last autumn when the family cut costs, and the contractor is named for a street with a bus station on it. My father says, cold, "This is a closed session, Adrian. You are not welcome." I say, "I filed motion 11. Chairman, check your own agenda. I am afraid I am extremely welcome." I sit down in one of the 2 empty chairs and gesture to the other, still empty. "We are waiting on one more voice before we begin," I say. Aldous Prentice comes through the door on the word voice in his best suit, carrying a slim folder and 60 years of nerve, and my father's smile finally goes out like a pilot light. Prentice does not sit. He stands at the foot of the table where he stood 3 years ago. He speaks in the voice this room was trained across decades to obey. "I have been the Vance family counsel for 31 years, he says. "On one occasion, I failed this family by protecting it. I am here to correct the record before witnesses." He opens the folder. He says, "First, the true and final will of Elias Vance, including the codicil suppressed at the reading 3 years ago." He reads it. The founding stake, 31%, the votes, the seat, to the grandson Adrian in any case, in all cases, the same phrase that lived on the watch codicil, now revealed as the spine of the whole document. The room makes no sound at all. Marcus's radio voice says, "That instrument was superseded. We have the renunciation." Prentice says, without looking up, "Yes, let us discuss the renunciation." He lays the forged deed beside the true will, my 19-year-old signature under yellow flags. Then he sets a small speaker on the table. "Play it," I say, and the room fills with the voice of a dying notary in a bar by the airport, planes going over, telling the whole thing unprompted, the typed deed, the driver outside, the photographs of a son at a card table, the choice with only one side. Gordon brought it to me already typed, then Holloway's voice on the deposition, 4 cameras, the chain complete, Gordon's name, the date, the stamp. My uncle's face becomes a color I have only seen on drowned men, and he says, that man is a drunk. And Prentice says, that man is a witness, and the difference is a jury, and I have already given a copy to one. Now Marcus stands up fast, because Marcus always thinks the only exit is through the front door. He says, "This is a stunt, we are closing a loan, Cross is here, the money is real, sit down or be removed." And he looks to the Cross team along the wall for the backing his whole life has trained him to expect from money. And Simon Cross, who has said nothing, who has been still as a held breath, stands up slowly and buttons his jacket and says, "About the loan, there are adjustments." Cross walks to the table and sets down his own folder. Cross Capital has completed due diligence on the Vance Group collateral, he says. "I am afraid the port assets are encumbered far beyond what was disclosed. 2.6 million in past due payables, all in third-party hands, a pattern of off-book scrap sales that is fraud on the very collateral you are pledging, and a vendor contract that bleeds the yard at $400 an idle hour." He looks at Gordon. "Your own signature approved that vendor. The Meridian loan cannot close against collateral that is already functionally owned by someone else." My father says, "Then who?" And Cross says the sentence I bought and paid for and could never have said as beautifully myself. He says, "Ask the man in the chair. Victor, he holds your paper. All of it, he has for months. I only just finished reading how much." And Simon Cross sits back down, leash and all, his empire intact and repriced, having spent exactly the one afternoon I purchased from him and not 1 minute more. So they ask me. They have to. There is nowhere else in the room to look. My father turns to me, and 3 years and 2 lifetimes stand between us on a boardroom table, and he says quietly, all of it stripped out of his voice, "What did you do, Adrian?" And I answer him with the arithmetic, because the arithmetic is the only honest language this family has ever had, and I have finally learned to speak it louder than they can. "I bought the debts," I say, "not the assets, the debts, the Halcyon note, the port payables, the marker Trent signed on a napkin, the redemptions draining Marcus's fund. And this morning, as of 9 o'clock, the Meridian Bridge facility itself, purchased from the syndicate that was going to fund it. A family drowning in Cross money never stopped to ask whether someone had bought the pool. You are not signing a loan today. You are signing a foreclosure, and the creditor is the boy you walked out through the kitchen." I stand and I open the last folder, the one I brought, and I begin laying pages down the table one at a time, the way Gordon laid one page down 3 years ago, so they can feel the weight of a single sheet arriving. The consolidated debt, held by companies named for a bus station, a flooded lane, and one named for no street at all. The scrap fraud, documented on my own scale records, signed by my uncle's initials. Diane's 11 months of transfers into the name Merceau, which is not a crime, but which the room now reads as what it is, a rat's own confession of which way the ship is going down. And then the last page, and I set it in front of my father, alone. It is the recording of Boyd, the fixer, on tape, naming the price of my life and the bridge and the fund that the money came from, my brother's fund, and the driver who took the job and chose, over diner coffee, to be a father instead of a weapon. I do not say murder. I stay in a size. Still nin names. Lalia the page say it. Marcus, I say without heat. You spent $40,000 trying to put me back in the water, and you could not even manage that on budget. The fund is empty. The tape is not. The room does the thing that rooms do when the money changes gods. 2 of the new lawyers physically slide their chairs an inch away from Marcus. A junior from the Cross team is already quietly gathering the signing pens back into their case, because there will be no signing. Celeste says, to no one, the necklace. I only consign the necklace, as if the smallest of her sins might be the one that saves her, and nobody answers her, which is the cruelest answer a room like this has. Then the doors open, because I timed them to, and the arithmetic becomes consequence. 2 officers and a woman from the district attorney's financial crimes unit, who has had Ada Merle's sealed package for a week and a warrant since dawn, crossed to Marcus first. They read him the fund charges, the redemption fraud, and hold the assault and conspiracy as a second matter, pending. Boyd they picked up at dawn on the strength of his own voice. which is why no warning call ever reached this room. My brother, whose voice was made for radio, makes no sound at all as the cuffs go on, and that silence is the first honest thing he has ever given the family. Second pair goes to Gordon, quieter, financial, the scrap fraud, and the forged instrument. My uncle threw a coin at me through his son and locked a gate against my trucks. Now he holds out his dock-strong hands, almost with relief, because a man who has waited 11 years to be caught is tired. I see it, and I take no pleasure in it, which surprises me. Customs will want him too, for the Jersey runs. Grandfather's notebook goes to them sealed. I kept my promise to the old man. I spent it slow. Diane is not arrested, because packing a parachute is not a crime, and she knows it, and she stands with her leather folder and her idling car, and she looks at me down the length of the table, where she once ended me in 4 sentences. She says, his mother came in through a side door. I say, and her son bought the building. Diane, take the side door. Your car is running. She goes, heels even, spine straight, the only one of them who loses without breaking. And I respect it the way you respect weather that costs you a roof. That leaves my father at the head of the table, chairman of nothing now, the room emptied of everyone whose fear used to make him tall. He does not rage. Victor Vance, who taught me to swim by throwing me off a dock, sits down slowly in the chairman's seat that is not his anymore, and he puts both hands flat on the wood, and he says, are you going to put me out through the kitchen? And I think about the parking lot at St. Anne's, and a chairman weeping in a parked car for a son he thought was dying, and Marv taking off his hat, and I find that the ledger in my chest has one entry left in it that is not about money at all. No, I say. I set a duffel bag on the table, the same brand, the same size as the one George handed me on the sidewalk 3 years ago. And inside, it is exactly what I was allowed to take that day. Some clothes, a few papers, nothing of the company. I say, you can take what fits in this. This is not justice. Justice would be the kitchen and the coin and the awning in the rain. I do it because you sat in a parking lot for 2 hours and could not go in. And that is more than you ever gave me at that table. It is not much, and I am not the kind of rich man who calls a small thing nothing. There is a bench at the Corridon Street bus station, the third one, with a heat vent under it. It is warm, I know. Go be a person, and if you ever learn the weight of one, call the hotel, and I will take 10 minutes, the way George offered me 10 minutes when I had a quarter. He picks up the bag. At the door he stops, and without turning he says, the watch, does it still run slow? And I say, 4 minutes, every day, forever. And he nods once at the door at nobody, the way he used to nod at me, and he goes. And I sit down at last in the chair at the head of the long table, my table in my building, 31% and the votes in the seat in any case, in all cases, and the room is finally quiet enough to hear a slow watch tick. Lily comes in past her leaving father, because I had her waiting 1 floor down with June. She stops in the doorway and looks at the emptied room, the pulled-out chairs, the open handcuff cases, the champagne sweating unopened in its bucket. She says, is it over? I say, the taking is over, now comes the paying back, and the paying back is nicer. Come here. I hand her a folder too, because this family communicates in folders, but hers is the only one all day with good news in it. Inside is a trust in her name, funded from the Halcyon's honest earnings. Hers at 21, no trustee uncle, no locked door, no marriage clause, drafted by a rehabilitated Aldous Prentice who wept doing it. And under it, the strawberry passbook, grown now. $340 of birthday money turned into a number with a comma in it. Every dollar of it is interest on the only investment that never once showed up in the system's ledger because the software could not read it. She does not look at the numbers. She hugs me in the chairman's chair, 18 years old and free, and says, you paid me back. I say, not even close. This is just the first installment, strawberry. I am going to be paying you back for the rest of my life. And I mean it as the happiest sentence I have ever said. The debts get paid all week in order the way grandfather kept his book. June Park comes to the Halcyon, and I offer her the thing she vetoed me into being good at. Partner in the lending arm, her name over the door beside the honest rates. She says, 30% and the veto. Same as always. I say 20% of a much larger thing, and she says, done. Then she takes my grandfather's watch off my wrist, cleans it one more time at the boardroom table out of pure habit, and hands it back running slow and honest. Rosa's flowers fill the hotel lobby on standing order. Marv runs the whole motor pool. Sal, who asked me once where all this goes, gets the fishing boat off his wall made real at the marina, slip fees paid 10 years out, and cries denying it at lunch. Ada Merle gets the story, all of it, on the record, and wins the prize the smear artists never will. Denny Falk gets a card at Christmas with a photograph of a girl named Sadie with hair growing back and no bill, ever. And George the doorman, 60 years old, who held my duffel bag on the worst day of my first life. He told me the awning stays dry if I ever need 10 minutes. I find him at his post at the halcyon door, and I tell him he is head of guest services now, at triple the wage. He says, "Sir, I only carried your bag." I say, "George, 3 years ago, you were the only person at this hotel who treated me like weather worth sheltering. I have built my whole life on the difference between the people who offer the awning and the people who point at the kitchen. You offered the awning, so the awning is yours now, all of it. Keep it dry for the next one." He shakes my hand, and the glass opens over an honest man for the last time in this story. And it says a small number, and it has never in 2 lifetimes been so completely beside the point. The system closes the account on a Sunday, which is the correct day, because Sundays were always the day this family did its business over lamb. I am on the step of the cottage on Marlowe Lane when the last window opens and the tomatoes are in, and Lily is inside arguing with June about whether basil counts as a vegetable, and the harbor is doing its slow gray breathing at the end of the street. The window says contract complete, operator net worth, final, 41 million and change, ranking, top 1% of the city. Then it does the thing it has been building toward for a year, and it prints the grade it was keeping the whole time. Assignment, steal all their wealth. Result, the wealth was never the assignment. The operator recovered 31% of a company and gave away the piece that mattered. Grade, incomprehensible. Recommend the software study the operator, not the reverse. I laugh on the step, alone in the last light, and I tell it, you were never a mind reader, you know. It prints, correct? I read prices. And I say, prices were never the thing either. Never once got a number for the only accounts that mattered. A doorman's 10 minutes, a pawnbroker's drawer, a driver who chose his daughter, a girl's $340 in a strawberry sock. You cannot read those, and neither could they, and that is exactly why they lost. The window is quiet for a long moment, then it prints one last line in the plain font and closes for good. It says, warranty void, service ends, but the boy carried the water. And the blue glass folds up into nothing, and I put my grandfather's slow, honest watch to my ear, and it ticks, 4 minutes behind the world and dead on time, and I go inside where the loud, warm people are, and I do not check a single number for the rest of the day.
Watch what this one actually spends. Every time the world hands him a way to crush somebody, he pays an old kindness back instead. He buys the pawnbroker's mercy. He tears up the sick man's loan. He sits across from the driver sent to kill him and reaches for the man's sick daughter, not his throat. He could have burned the family down in a week. He took the slow way instead, settling up with everyone who was good to him when he had 1 quarter to his name. He got rich hearing the price people mean under the price they say, then spent it on the accounts no ledger tracks. The awning in the rain, the soup on the counter, the birthday sock. That is where it all went and why it held.